central system. Um, so yeah, that's about Stockton. How WaySync came to Stockton, probably pretty similar, as Dr. Tia mentioned a little bit. In 2019, the city completed construction on its second scoot adaptive corridor on March Lane and East-West arterial roadway in the city, one of the busiest roadways in our city. This was our second scoot adaptive corridor and fourth adaptive corridor. In total, we also had two rhythm engineering adaptive corridors, and I can tell you that all four of those adaptive corridors are no longer operational today. But that adaptive corridor, I think, is what got Dr. Tian interested in Stockton in the first place. So uh, in sometime in I think late 2020, 2021, Dr. Tian came out and on his own initiative, he performed travel runs on our on along March Lane, what he thought was our scoot corridor. It had been turned off at the time, but he didn't know that. But he came back and showed us the results and asked to show us more, asked if we were interested in getting our hands on the tool. So of course the city has had some existing timing plans in place for a long time. So we were sort of interested in a citywide retiming and thought this tool might be useful for us in doing this. So we allowed Dr. Tian the opportunity to optimize a corridor here in the city, the one you see to the south there, a little portion of Hammer Lane, another east-west arterial roadway in the city, also very busy. So we gave him the existing timing, allowed him to optimize that timing. And then he came out, we did a travel run, with the existing timing. So we could do a comparison. Then we downloaded the timing, the optimized timing, allowed it to transition, and then performed the travel runs on the new timing. And the results were immediately apparent, a clear improvement. But also during our travel run, we did notice one traffic signal that was just way off of where it should have been. So we ended up stopping by that signal and seeing what the controller was doing. And it said it was, dead on. It wasn't transitioning or anything. So we dove deeper and we found that it was stuck in like priority recovery or something. So it, not sure exactly where it was in the cycle, but it wasn't, where it said it would, it actually was. So we ended up fixing that. But besides the clear benefit of optimizing the signal timing, we saw the benefits of WaySync as a troubleshooting tool. So shortly after that, we began work on entering into a contract for WaySync. It took a while, but eventually December 2022, we finally got our contract, our licenses, iPads, support, timing, single timing, support, the whole 9 yards. And we are about to renew our licenses coming up here pretty soon. So as soon as we got our contract underway, we finally got our own licenses. We began work on retiming our network here in our series of east-west and north-south arterials that you can see in the map above. We had a couple student interns help us out creating the network. So it's very good if you have interns, a good way to learn traffic signal timing, phasing, things like that. Um, so we started off, getting all our existing timing in and kind of getting a baseline performing travel runs on those. Um, and then optimizing, we started, we have a series of crisscrossing arterials here, as well as coordination with the Caltrans signals at Interstate 5 to the west. We started out on our southern east-west arterial, optimizing that, locking it with the Caltrans signal. And then we did the second from the left, north-south. We would lock the intersection at March Lane, and then optimize based on that. And then we would lock the signal to the north at Hammer Lane on the east-west arterial and optimize that. And then the other two north-south arterials, we just got as good as we can get based on that. But yeah, it was a long process. You can't simply hit optimize and run with it. There's some adjustment that needs to be done based on our knowledge of the signals. If we get some early return somewhere, or sometimes the WaySync would create yellow traps cutting off some of the bands. So we were trying to adjust for that. And then once we got it where we wanted it, we implemented it and kind of watched from the office, make sure everything was working the way it should be, and then go out and perform our travel runs and just sort of repeat the process. And then, of course, compare it to the old, make sure that we actually see a difference in the signal timing and improvement. And we did across the board. So over there, you can see the left time space diagram was a before, and on the right is an after. So far fewer stops, much smoother progression. And then, of course, I'm sure all of you've seen the many reports that WaySync can also generate, performance reports. And if you have volumes, these before and after reports are great, especially if you need to present to council or the public the travel time savings, fuel savings, emissions, things like that. Very nice to have all this in one place. And beyond, our retiming efforts, WaySync has become almost a daily tool for me to use while troubleshooting or responding to signal complaints. If we're making any sort of adjustment to a coordinated signal, if we need more time for a left turn, a side street, or something, I almost always work it out in WaySync first, see how much time I can provide without hurting the progression too much. I'm trying to give as much time as possible to all movements. And I think in some cases, I've even used it to figure out where we can double cycle a couple signals and serve the side streets more often, the pedestrians. So it's been very great for that. Like I mentioned, we found signals, stuck like the very first time out. We found that signal stuck recovering from priority. So it makes it very apparent if something's not matched up with WaySync, something's definitely wrong. As long as we have, our signals match what's in WaySync, we know that we're going to have good progression. Another thing we found during our retiming efforts is that we have two different softwares out in the field, and the clock reference even though one of them was set for, midnight, depending on what time we started the plan, what the cycle time was, the clock reference just was not right. So WaySync made it very easy to figure out um, exactly the time we needed to adjust our offset so that it would match what's in WaySync. Um, and another thing, wrong sequence. We sometimes find signals, not running the sequence they're supposed to, even though um, it would be input correctly, the signal would default to the default sequence for some reason. Um, I mean, that's pretty easy to see just watching the signal, but having WaySync up, you know exactly what it's supposed to be as well. Um, so yeah, it's just sort of become a almost daily tool for us. I use it all the time when making signal timing adjustments. Um, so with that, kind of get into my final thoughts. WaySync has provided a lot for the city. Um, big benefits. First of all, an enhanced confidence. When we make an adjustment or when um, we're confident that that data that we're putting out there is going to work. It's going to work well. It's not going to cause any problems out there. Um, Also improve troubleshooting and response, finding issues, fixing them. Like I said, as long as we have our signals, kind of matched up with what WaySync has, we know that we're going to have a good progression out there. Everything's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Um, and, you know, adding to that, validating, when we do make a change that it's it's correct and, um, it's working the way it's supposed to. And on top of that, we've also used WaySync to come up with new timing plans. For example, on the map there, the southernmost corridor, we recently had a construction project out there to install bike lanes, video detection. Um, and on one of the first days on the job, the contractor cut all the DLCs of the existing loops because the plan said that they were going to be removed. Um, so we had all those signals maxing out, basically running fixed time. So we quickly put them all into WaySync and came up with a little coordination plan to implement there. And we have a Bluetooth travel time system in our city. And after we made the changes, we saw average travel time improvements of 3 to 5 minutes on that corridor. So it's very handy tool that we use all the time here. Pretty much all of our signal timing, the coordination at least, changes we uh, refer to WaySync much of the time. So that was all I prepared
Okay.
today. If there's any questions or comments.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, so there are some questions later. I may have some questions for you. So that's just generals because I get a lot of uh, questions, same questions from different users. So, but yeah, let's start with some questions posted on the chat box. I think okay. So Chris is asking. Pretty George's from city of San Antonio. Are those results like stops and travel time based off actual runs? So you show the
Yep,
performance.
I'm gonna go back to that.
Mm.
So these reports, yeah, they're all based on the actual travel runs that we've made. through WaySync. Um, so the top performance index report, yeah, it's just based on the travel runs, number of stops, the average speed. The one on the bottom uh, takes into account the travel runs, but also the if you have volumes, you can actually get all the the cost and emissions savings as well.
I don't know if you're in front of the computer, you can open your city network. I don't know. Do you have that?
Oh, I'm on a laptop. I don't think it's on. I'm not sure if it's on this one.
Yeah, maybe it's
Let's see.
better you show them your actual trajectories. I know you have pretty much coded the entire city, right?
Don't know if it's on this. I guess it's not on this laptop. Sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Uh,
And if you don't mind, can I ask a second question? Because it's like my third question.
yeah.
So I see that you use it for your run. Well, can you also use it for like before and after comparisons to kind of tell whether or not whether or not there is an improvement?
Yeah, so that's what I was showing down here. This is a before and after report. So we have our existing timing plan and the runs we made. Um, you could see under benefit by direction, the before timing plan names, PM original, after timing plan name, PM final. So it is comparing directly to um, the existing timing plan and the runs you've made on those.
So that answer your question, Chris?
Yeah, sorry, thanks.
Uh, yeah, I just also want to mention maybe some people are wondering, okay, this is showing the before after result. Is there there's a simple way to compare? This is the before travel time, this is the after travel time, this is the percent reduction on travel time, or percent increase on speed. So we think M. Okay, we think M. So we have two basically two packages. One is this the desktop. What Jeff is showing is the report from the desktop version. We think M also has its own report, so you can see several options. One of them just a simple, not showing this kind of benefit cost, but to show the before after travel time, number of stops, and the percent reduction. So that one you can just directly put that into project report because that's mostly people care about. I think there's also a question. So could you elaborate what you meant by WaySync and yellow trap? I think I heard you mentioned WaySync can get into some yellow trap issues. You need to fix those.
Just by looking at the time space diagram, you can kind of see um, where where you still have some green. You might have a green band, if you change the offset a little bit. Um, so we were trying to basically eliminate that whenever possible. Try not to cut off any platoons.
Yeah, can
Okay.
I
Basically,
weigh in on that a little bit,
yeah,
Hyun?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I think I interpreted that the same way, Jeff. And what I really like about this is you do want to look and see, the person who trained me talked about yellow progression for safety. So you can take your offset and tweak it and try and make sure that you're not setting up vehicles to, the last few vehicles in a platoon to say run the yellow or the red light. Too late, because
yeah,
you
we'd
can
rather
definitely
have
miss
them.
by a few seconds and then you end up with this problem. Or if the travel time on that link is not exactly what the posted speed is. I have one that posted at 45 and it's a long link. And if people are averaging 43 or 42, even in free flow, then you're missing those last few vehicles and they're thinking about running the red light.
Right, yeah, so we're trying to eliminate, arriving on stale green that's about to turn to yellow. We'd rather have them, up a platoon arrive, on a stale red that's about to turn green, and just so you don't. cut off the platoon on a yellow. And you were mentioning speeds, along link where maybe vehicles aren't traveling the speed limit. There's also some, handy tools in WaySync where you can adjust the speeds, and we've done that. Even though, after making the travel runs, we find that maybe most vehicles are traveling a couple miles above the speed limit, and so we can adjust for that and re-optimize the timing based on the speed that the vehicles are actually traveling.
Yeah, the yellow trap. Maybe some people may be confused with the yellow trap is a term usually related to running protect permitted. You know,
Hmm.
if it's not using flashing yellow arrow, and
Yeah,
you run a lead lag, so that will get into a yellow trap situation. I think what you meant here is, thank you, John.
just cutting off the platoon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So you don't want most of the people, to run the yellow. So basically, run the yellow, and then they may run the red. It's a safety concern. Um, from the time space diagram, from the trajectory, from the actual travel speed, you can actually, yeah, notice that. Very good. Okay. So okay, there's a question. So from a practitioner's perspective, adaptive system challenges in structure design, system loops configuration versus WaySync. Where were you able to get a well-received coordination plans with WaySync?
maybe I can look at the chat.
Yeah,
So,
that's from, I don't know, S1 to 8. So I guess the
okay.
question is adaptive. You try adaptive, there are a lot of challenges. And when you with WaySync, did you get a good coordination plan that well received by the public?
Yeah, so we've had experience with two adaptive systems, and like I mentioned, they're all turned off at this point. Um, I don't really want to get too into, certain, if it's adaptive good or bad. It's got its pluses
Jeffrey,
and minuses. Yeah.
I don't want to put you on the line, but for this question, this is Ihab Ilzanu from Caltrans,
Mhm.
Okay.
District 6. Basically, the idea has always been with the adaptive system, it requires some hardware installation in the field, in cabinet, and really trained engineers everything requires some training, but fine tuning month in, month out to keep it to the uh, quality or
Right.
the progression that you started when the
Sure.
consultant gave it back to you day one, basically. Where this tool, at least from my experience, provide you with less hardware deployment, basically a field optimization tool that will give you a set of progression or plans, uh, and it
Right.
will offload you from having the adaptive. You could
Hmm.
accomplish the same goals that you see for your public without having that extra hardware and fine-tuning mechanism year round to keep it to the same progression that's needed. That's one thing that we're trying to work with the local
Yeah.
agencies here to see that there is a value with the less expensive approach, basically.
Yeah, so every adaptive system is going to be different. We had two very different systems. In sync is way, hands off. It's kind of doing its own thing. You don't know what it's doing. You have no control over it. Whereas Scoot, it's, I mean, that was like my first few months full time here. I was, you know, like 24/7 making adjustments, watching it, trying to get it, you know, fine tuned, and we just never got it, working the way we wanted it. Constantly getting complaints, phases skipping. We had on that particular quarter, we had a lot of oversized PEDs, so it was hard to, account for that, keep the cycle times low. Basically, we weren't giving it a lot of room to actually adapt because we had our oversized PEDs and we were trying to stay within a certain cycle length. So yeah, it just didn't go over well. Whereas with WaySync, it works any controller type, pretty much manufacturer. You just get the timing, implement it, validate it, and I mean a well-sorted coordination plan. It's gonna work every time. Whereas adaptive, you kind of, it can do so many things. You'll be doing different things at different times, so you never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, thank you, Ihab, for jumping in. So I guess
Yeah.
that's what
Thank you.
you meant. Yeah, thank you. I think there's a question from Logan. Logan Williams. So how does WaySync help identify when intersections are over capacity, and what is the city's response when they are?
Yeah, we've run into that. I've actually, yeah, particularly in the PM peak, I found that um, after we made the timing changes, some signals seem more congested. We do have we try to stick to 120-second cycle, which is probably not enough for certain times of the day, but um, perhaps the timing improvements have actually allowed more traffic, to flow through the network and causing more congestion at certain times of the day at certain signals. At the moment, we haven't done anything, but we could use WaySync to try different cycle lengths. Or I have looked into it a little bit, playing around with the different cycle lengths for those corridors where we're seeing those issues at. Just haven't implemented anything yet.
Okay, Logan, I don't know. Are you talking about thinking from the trajectory where you can see where there's a over capacity, or maybe?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So I guess Logan was trying to ask. So these trajectories, you look at these trajectories, obviously, just looking at this system on the screen, there's no oversaturation. Yeah, you do have stops, but it's just one stop, then you can go through. Okay, if a vehicle or more vehicles cannot go through a signal in one cycle, so that's an indication of overcapacity. So that's kind of my understanding of Logan's point.
And that's why we can't completely ditch something like synchro, because we can only do so much with the WaySync.
The trajectory, yeah. Now, maybe that's kind of a follow up a question. I know initially when we developed WaySync, we didn't have the volume and geometry. So basically, you need to figure out what's the cycle, what's the split you want to use, and then WaySync will give you the optimized sequence and offset. A lot of people questioning what if it's a brand new timing? How do you figure out, if without volume, how do you figure out what cycle you should use? Now we do have that function. I know you haven't tried. You mentioned you haven't tried, but WaySync does have the option to allow you to put in the geometry and the volume, tell you what cycle would work, whether even with a very long cycle, whether it's still oversaturated or not. But in general, when you started, there's no really that volume input. How did you manage to do that? Because this is the question a lot of people ask. Without volume, how did you do the signal timing? Or did you collect volume, or you didn't? You just purely based on something else?
So we pretty much use all our existing timing plans, all our splits, cycle lengths, and send them into WaySync and optimize those.
I'm sure you made some split adjustment, right? The cycle maybe is, from the system point of view, you don't want to suddenly change the cycle because you're going to affect a lot of crossing arterials. But I do believe you adjust the split based on your observations, right?
Not too much. Yeah, based on observations later, we did. And I think someone also had a question about complaints from side streets.
Mm.
And I mean, no more than there. We had complaints before. We still get complaints, but I think WaySync has helped us to um, respond to those and maximize uh, our split for the sides for side streets and left turns without taking too much away from our coordinated phases.
Okay. And yeah, that's Tina's question from Tina. And after that, you see Ryan has a question. Does the
Yep.
city implement any green hold split extension for the coordinate phases? I don't know if you know what it means.
Yeah, I understand. No, we don't do any split extension. We do, I think in a few places we actually do early. We allow the coordinated phase to gap out if there's no demand. But no split extension that I'm aware of.
Jeffrey, may I ask what controller manufacturer you guys use in Stockton? This is Ehab again.
Yeah, so currently we have two. We mostly have CPAC, and we also have some D4 controllers, but we're actually moving all towards D4 at the moment.
Okay, got you. Thank you.
Okay, Ryan, I guess your question, you're from LA County, right? Am I right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess your question is you use Econlight controllers that has the split extension. Basically, you allow a portion of the coordinate phase to be actuated. Is that right?
Well, we use primarily we use 170s or 2070s.
Oh,
Typically, if it's a city, then we'll use some other city. Then we might that we maintain for. They might have Econolite. But yeah, basically on our time space diagrams, we essentially measure like the top of the green band, where that's coming in the cycle, and then we generally want to hold the green to allow that platoon to make it through. So yeah, sometimes there might be situations where the side street's waiting a little bit longer, but it's to prioritize the coordinated phase. So I was just curious if the city has done anything.
Yeah, we have a lot of oversized PEDs, so we can't really extend, and take away that time from the side street. I mean, maybe I don't know if there's a way, like if there's a PED call that it wouldn't do that.
Yeah, that's actually kind of going off of what you're saying about the PEDs. Another strategy we employ is a no PED scenario. So we time it so that the side street might get a green split that's less than the PED time, assuming
Yeah.
that there's no PEDs. But then if there is a PED, then the green split would be increased. I'm curious, is there a way to kind of differentiate that on WaySync? Because I know we do that in a lot of different intersections within the county.
right now, no. Yeah, I know what you mean. So on the time space diagram, we don't have that split extension built in yet. That's something I've been thinking about it because when I visit your site, I did notice some locations. Yeah, you get you some most time you just get early termination. Sometimes you get extension. So that at least the mobile tool will help you to see, how often it happens, the extension happens. And then if it doesn't happen all the time, you may want to adjust your offset. That's just kind of my general impression. But I know that is a feature, a quite advanced feature most agencies do not use. So Muhammad said, have you used the Synchro for optimization and compare with WaySync optimization?
I have tried Synchro in the past, not really for optimization, but to come up with new timing plans. And I haven't had much luck with it. I don't know if I was doing something wrong, but even though it looked good on paper and Synchro, you implement it and it doesn't seem to be working out as well as you hope. And that's why we love WaySync, is because there's validation. You can actually see that everything's exactly where it should be. So no, we haven't compared the two.
Okay. I think you already answered that question, what type of controller and the firmware, right?
Yeah,
But the city is changing now.
big change, yes.
And also, John kind of followed up Ryan's question. Yeah, I know the city, yeah, John, they use ecoline controller. Probably there are a lot of small intersections. Probably he used a lot of these kind of features. Okay. And also, John answered Muhammad's question. Okay,
I had one more quick question.
go ahead.
If we have, say, a really large, like a large intersection that appears to be two intersections, but it might just be split by like a railroad or an overpass or something, but it's technically controlled by one controller. And so we use one controller to time this large intersection that looks like two intersections, but say there are like overlaps to extend the green as you cross the intersection. What would be the best way to, I guess, program the timing in WaySync for that scenario? Like, is it best to kind of treat it as two intersections, or is there a way to kind of have it function as one intersection? I'm not 100% sure.
I don't know, Jeff, do you have multiple intersections controlled by one controller?
We do have they're not as close together, I think, as Ryan's example, but on our map here, top right, the intersection at the start of the corridor up there and the intersection to the left are actually controlled by one controller. There's a driveway that has a left turn in that's controlled by a signal. So we program them as two separate intersections just because they're spaced kind of farther apart.
Yeah, I think that's what I would probably do as well. But yeah, okay, just curious.
Okay, Ryan, later I will show you. Okay, we can actually code as a cluster. So after Jeff answer all the questions, I'll try to find a case to show you the clustered. We call it clustered. If the standard like a diamond interchange in Texas is very standard facing, we can still run the optimization. If it's if it's not a standard, you can code as an overlap with overlaps with one controller. But the optimization, our automatic optimization may not work. But what you have to do is you optimize the rest and then manually kind of merge that timing, that clustered timing to the rest. So I'm trying to find an example to show you that function
I
shortly.
see.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I had another question for the city of Stockton, if you guys still have time.
Yeah.
We've been running into a problem where a lot of softwares don't handle cross coordination. So two arterials that cross each other that are coordinated. And we reached out to like D4 recently, and their solution was just to run the signal on pre-time to allow for cross coordination. How do you guys deal with it on your software? Because our older Laco software can handle it, but we notice a lot of the newer softwares can't.
We typically just do choose one arterial to have as the coordinated phase, and then either place the other one on max recall. I don't think we do any dual coordination. I think it's an option in both of our controllers, but we choose not to dual cord. Um, that's that's how we've handled it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, see if there are more questions. Okay, anybody else have questions? Okay, John has a comment. I like and generally prefer that method too. WaySync does allow a much faster implementation from scratch, though and can provide pretty good results. I guess everybody can read John's comments there. Okay, any other questions? If not, okay, I will follow up with Ryan's question. So let me share my screen. Okay. Here. Okay, so you can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay. So this is you see, I mentioned this is in Austin. Okay. This is a diamond interchange. You can see here. Okay, if I move the cursor here, the two signals are highlighted. So this is called cluster. Okay, you can see the overlaps. So there's a phase one. This is the overlap 1 plus 2. This is the off ramp. This is 4 plus 15. Here on this side, okay, there's 8 plus 18. So if I double click here, okay, so the timing, look at the timing, and you can see, so this is one controller. So you can still run kind of virtual real time to compare to see if it's really matching what's in the field. So you can see this is one controller with all those phases. Right now is 2 and 5. So you can see this is 2, 1 plus 2, this is 2, and 5 is here. Okay, so this is a very standard diamond phasing. Okay, we of course allow you to code other overlaps, other cases, but the optimization, so if I want to run the optimization, open the time space diagram here. Okay, you can see this is a cluster. Okay, if I move the offset at one of them, the other is also moving. So that's when this is controlled by one controller. Okay, and because this is a standard diamond, we can do the optimization. Okay, so allow you to do the optimization. Of course, whatever you want to manually adjust, you can do these. Okay, so if like I said, if it's a very special overlap case, won't optimize automatically. What you have to do is you just need to optimize the others and then manually and move the offset for that particular intersection. So that is how you handle the clusters. So to create a cluster is actually pretty straightforward. Let's say these two, I want to be in one controller. You just say new signal cluster. You highlight them, and then you come here, you give a name. Okay, say okay. And then now it's in a cluster, see here. And then you can modify, okay, so that the timing, this is where you are going to put your overlaps. Yeah, how do you put your overlap? For example, this one, you want to be overlap 8 with 12, then you just type something like this. It takes some time to get used to it, but the function is there. Okay, I want to see if there are any other questions.
Thank you very much. That was the exact scenario I was thinking of actually. So yeah, that's cool to know it can be done. Thank you.
Okay, so John also had a comment for your information. SC2, SC3 use the number of split extension. I don't know, John. You are more familiar with that, so I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit more. I think that those are
Sure.
important features. Okay.
Yeah, well, somebody used the term split extension, and to me, it's more of actuated coordination or an early gap out. And so it sounds like somebody else is using controllers other than the Econolite with that same terminology, and maybe it does extend past the normal split, but the Econolites have always gapped out to my knowledge. And the EOS software, which is their latest, they changed that terminology. So it matches the operations.
Yeah, I
Does that
think
make sense?
I think in the old controller AIC2 they use split extension if I remember correctly. So
That's right.
What's the new term they are using now?
It is early gap out. Let me just verify that. Chord phase, early gap out,
Early gap
which
out.
is more accurate description because it's not really extending the split.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. You set a value for each ring per ring, and whatever that value is, it could actually yield early. So really, you take the force off minus that early gap out time, and that becomes the yield point where the intersection can yield.
Yeah, so basically it's the actuated coordinated portion,
Yes.
right? In fact, I was trying to figure out we try to add this function. So I thought, okay, what's the term should we use? I don't want to confuse a lot of people. In traffic where they call it early yield, something like that. So every controller is a little bit different. Okay, we have about 4 minutes. I don't know if anybody has any general questions, other questions. So I hear no. Our next meeting will be March 12th. Okay, I will send a reminder. I need to also decide, okay, who would be the best to speak in the next meeting. So I will send a reminder 1 or 2 days before the meeting. So if there are no more questions, thank you everybody for participating. Thank you again, Jeff, and for the presentation. Thank you, John, for all your clarifications and comments. If anybody has any other particular questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you, everybody. Wish everybody a good holiday. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Great presentation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.